Hey everybody, how's it going? So today I want to talk to you all about my opinions regarding Cyberpunk 2077. More specifically, Cyberpunk when it launched. I know that they've made a lot of improvements since then, but to date I have only played the game during its launch format and on base consoles. For me personally, it all started after I 100% completed The Witcher 3. I remember seeing the first trailer for Cyberpunk and I was immediately sold. I avoided watching any of the following trailers, dev talks, live streams, in order to make sure that I was as fresh as possible going into the game. I didn't feel like I needed much additional information as after playing through The Witcher 3, I trusted CD Projekt Red to deliver a great game. But did they? First, let's talk about the story. To me, the story was brilliant. I love the fact that the story is essentially a warning about uploading our minds and how it most likely wouldn't really be us, but more of a program simulating our behavior. At least that was how I interpreted the story by the end of the game. You see this in the scene where V gets to talk to Jackie during one of the many alternate endings for this game. Given that there are already companies offering or prepping similar services, I found this take on the idea a bit refreshing. I really love the dynamic of V coming to grips that their own body is being stolen and that there isn't much that they can do about it other than either accept it or fight it, ultimately to their death. It was a great story to contrast with the setting of a world where people continue to modify their bodies to the point of the line between human and machine start to become blurred. It's a discussion that I think we will see a lot more in the future if life continues on the path that it's currently on. As far as gameplay goes, I thought that it was an absolute blast. I found out very quickly that the game delivered on its promise of being an RPG. My first playthrough, I wanted to feel like Wolverine, so I maxed out my character's health regeneration, gave them a metal skeleton, immunity to status effects, and blades that could come out of my arms. It was an absolute blast as I could just charge into any combat scenario and obliterate everyone using the Mantis blades. I felt like I was Wolverine. On my second playthrough, I was wondering if I could build a character that could take out entire enemy territories using nothing but his mind. And I was. I built this creepy looking dude in a suit with twisty eyes. I would approach buildings and take out everyone without ever stepping foot into the building itself. I did this by maxing out all of his hacking abilities so that I could spread mind viruses that would jump from enemy to enemy. It was pretty intense because I usually only had to use the hack 1 or 2 times to entirely clear a building. Then I could just casually walk in with my character and his twisty eyes, almost like a high-tech powered Killgrave. It was pretty crazy, but a lot of fun. Now on my third playthrough, I decided to use weapons and made a relatively balanced character. What I will say about the weapons is that when you first start using them, they feel clunky, slow, and painfully inaccurate. I've noticed far too many people online writing off the game solely because of its gunplay. However, this is a very ignorant way to look at the gun mechanics. When you jump into the massive skill tree, you'll see pretty early on that you are intended to build your own preferred accuracy, recoil, damage, etc. per each gun type. I actually really like that system. It's almost like you start off as someone who has no skills using firearms, but you have to put your experience into mastering each gun type that you specifically are drawn to. So personally, I feel like the way that they structured the skill trees and abilities gives you an incredible amount of options on how you want to build your character and how you want to play the game itself, something that many other RPGs fail to deliver on. Now, I'll be honest, I know that many people are not going to agree with me on this, and that's fine. I've also noticed that most of the people who complain about this game didn't even play it, or they played just past the intro and then wrote it off before even touching the skill tree. Now, as far as the graphics go, I would have to say the game was definitely lacking, especially when you consider what they showed in the original trailer versus what we ended up getting. Now, don't get me wrong, the art design was amazing, as well as the levels and just the city in general, and honestly at times it felt very surreal. But having to cut things down to try to keep the game running on old consoles definitely showed. It hurt the game quite a bit, and to be fair, I have heard that the recent updates have fixed a lot of the graphical issues. So once I actually experiment with everything that they've added and changed, my opinions on this may change. Now, overall, I really love this game. From the characters, the art design, the RPG elements, the skill trees, the cyberware, the story, the branching endings, the list goes on. And to be fair, I enjoyed this game far more than any criticism that I actually have for it. However, having played this game day one on a base console, I definitely saw my fair share of glitches. However, none of the bugs or issues that I ran into were anything that I haven't seen in 100 other games at launch. Hell, even Bethesda games are still broken to this day, yet they continue to resell them at full price every few years. This is something that really frustrated me about all the reviews coming out when the game was first released. You had big name reviewers that were putting out reviews without even getting past the intro of the game. Too broken, unplayable, more glitchy than game, etc. After PlayStation ended up removing the game from the store, I was a bit ticked off as this game was absolutely incredible. Yes, it had bugs and glitches, but none that were worse than any other big name release game that I've played within the last 20 years. I will be fair and say that I do know a lot about what was going on behind closed doors, and sadly, the reason this game was released before they could iron out all of the kinks was largely in part to pressure from up top. Oftentimes at businesses or corporations, the higher-ups have a very large disconnect between the employees or the actual product that they're trying to deliver on. Now, I'm hopeful that they are able to be more reasonable to their developers going forward and have better communication, but I do want to clarify all of this, as in my opinion, the game did need more time to complete. I mean, just looking at all of the cut content, you can see that they clearly intended for the scope of the game to be significantly larger than what they ended up delivering on. At least that's what it appears to be. So with all of those things considered, I would have to give this game an 8 out of 10, because despite all of its flaws and bugs, I genuinely loved every minute of playing it. I couldn't put it down. The characters felt raw and real. The story was mind-bending and interesting. None of the bugs I had were game-breaking. And the ones that I did have were pretty funny. I had quite a lot of good laughs every time the game would bug out. It was entertaining. Ultimately, the reason I rank this game as high as I do is because it was worth it. It was worth the price I paid for it. I had a blast. I couldn't put it down. I played it almost every day for a month straight, and to this day, I have to say I think Cyberpunk 2077 is one of my favorite games. Now, I'm hoping that the developers over at CD Projekt Red continue to support Cyberpunk, adding in new content and expanding it, much like how Hello Games has continued to support No Man's Sky, turning it into an amazing game, to be honest. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you had a great time. I hope you have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I will see you in the next video.